Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This one has some chaos bisexual energy, and I am here for it. So today, I am reviewing Fear Me Not by Ophelia Silk. I have reviewed another romance by this author before, and I was kind of surprised by this one when she emailed me and she was like, hey, another book coming out soon, you want it? And I was like, I didn't know you had anything else coming out soon. So I was really excited. This is a by M.F. Tam Lin retelling. So we have a man and a woman in the relationship, but they are both bisexual, and the queerness just comes through and all the chaotic energy, and it's great. Now, I do not know anything about the myth of Tam Lin other than it comes from Irish folklore, and there's like an opera or something about it that I had to play a piece for band in college that one time, and that's the extent of my knowledge. So I was going into this kind of blind, and I did that on purpose. I did not look up anything from Tam Lin because I didn't want to be accidentally spoiled. So this is about a woman named Siobhan who is hungry. That's what the book talks about constantly. She always wants more than what the world is willing to give her, although she's also living in abject poverty and having to like share a single room with her father in this mining compound. So like, maybe it's not so much that she's constantly hungry. Maybe it's that she constantly hasn't had enough in her life. But okay. She goes into this Fey realm to steal some magic flowers to sell because poverty. And there she meets a Fey man named Finlay who never takes anything seriously and is therefore never taken seriously by the Fey. In this world, the Fey have kind of built a bureaucracy wherein you are supposed to remain more stoic and aloof at all times. And it is alluded to that this has to do with some big thing that happened in the past where they had collided with humans and bad stuff, and so they cut humans off and they now don't want to be anything like humans, so you can't have emotions. And Finlay reads as low-key autistically coded because for whatever reason he can't seem to even try to like mask his emotions like that, but it's not overt, so I can't tell if that was intentional or not. But they meet and sparks fly, and the dynamic between the two of them is delightful and very, very non-gender roles. At one point, he goes to touch Siobhan, and Siobhan like grabs his wrist, and she goes, "You do not touch me unless I tell you to." And Finlay has this moment of like, am I attracted to this? And then he finds out that yes, he's 100% attracted to this muscular human woman telling him what to do, and it becomes the defining characteristic of their dynamic, and it's great. There are a couple sex scenes within this story. Off the top of my head, I believe 2, and some kinks, but I'm not going to get too much into those here. The author does have some lists of content warnings later on, but I very much enjoyed that dynamic, and the romance between the two felt very real, and it had conflicts that felt very realistic and very natural. There was no random throwing in of a conflict here. The only thing with this development of the relationship, and one of the reasons I had to take off a star, was that it felt very off pacing wise. The first third set it up pretty well. The second third felt like pure vibes, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. You can have a book that's just pure vibes. The thing is that the second third is pure vibes, but the final third is all plot, and so it feels like a little bit like it comes out of nowhere. And there's some reference, some hints that something is coming in the final third, but, you know, because Finlay doesn't care, he doesn't really pay attention, and it's more focused on the relationship, so you don't get a lot of warning, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of build-up, just a lot of reveals and things going down in the final third. There does need to be a content warning, and this probably is going to spoil things, but it's one of those content warnings that I cannot in good conscience leave out, even though it does spoil things. This book involves discussions of terminating a pregnancy due to poverty. That is a big conflict for a hot minute in the book, so be aware of that. It didn't affect me necessarily too much, but again, I also knew going into it, so I was kind of prepared, but be on the lookout for that. And the other reason that I took off a star before we get into the fun ending part was both Siobhan and Finlay had very big not like other girls vibes to them. And while yes, a character going through not like other girls phases is very realistic and makes sense, the thing here is that the book only counter narratives one of them having that mindset. You see a little bit with Finlay. The book has a counter narrative of, no, he's not the only fae that thinks like this. No, he's not the super special outsider that he thinks he is. There are other people that think like him, but it doesn't do that for humans. Siobhan, talks about how all humans are horrible, and the book's like, yep, she's right, all humans are horrible. And that kind of thought process does come across as a little bit adolescent, because anyone who has ever gone through that phase and has come out the other side will know that, no, you're not actually the super special person that sees all the flaws of the world when everyone else doesn't. You're probably just in a micro community that you don't fit in. And you probably need to find another community that you do fit in. So it's fairly likely that if Siobhan hadn't been living in this horrible part of town with all these pervy, creepy minors, with the pickaxe, not underage, you know what I mean, that, yeah, she probably would have had a different view of humanity, but there's not really any counter narrative to that, which I understand that this is probably a me pet peeve as someone who is on the other side and understands the details of that kind of self-narrative. So between that and the plotting thing, I did take off a star, but just the one, thankfully, because the ending was awesome. It does feel slightly like it comes out of nowhere, although I guessed the thing with the tithe. But the ending third is like, thing, go. And I'm gathering that the final third is probably the most true to the original myth, wherein that's why it feels like there's so many big, gigantic things happening, is because that's what happened in the original myth. And this story just took more time to build up the romance first. But I did like how big it got. I did like the stakes and the tension, even though this is like a romance. So pretty much how it's going to end. That's not a spoiler. That's just part of the genre. But even then, there were still some big stakes moving forward. And I really liked that. And of course, the ending was so sweet and cute. I do still wish there had been more of a counter narrative for humans in that, no, they're not all universally terrible. But that might have also just been a case of there was already so much to be wrapped up and move forward that sure. We'll just let the humans be terrible in this fairy tale, I guess. In general, I really liked the writing style of this. There were some moments of purple prose, especially in discussing Siobhan's hunger and how she always seemed to hunger for everything. But it didn't go into full fairy tale mode, and that's totally a matter of preference. I know people who actually love that kind of fairy tale writing style. I just personally am not a fan of it, so I was really happy that it was more like a fairly matter of fact, still with descriptions, writing style with some purple prose to taste rather than full what is it called, fantasticism or something like that. Not full fairy tale. That's what I'm saying. So it was a very quick read. Not to say that it's simplistic, but it had that thing where it's you barely even noticed the pages flying by as they went, which makes for a very great, day off weekend read. Or I think I would consider this a beach read, definitely. A lot of talk about lovely nature and summer vibes that would probably do really well with that kind of context. In general, as I said before, I gave this book 4 stars. Highly enjoyed it. I am enjoying Ophelia Silk's work very often. And then I do have, hopefully, another book from the author's other name, her YA work, coming. And I'm really excited for that one as well, because that one's going to be sapphic. So be on the lookout for more fun queer romances. I am still open to review requests. Doing slightly better at getting through them, but no promises. I'm going to be spending the month of April working on the bigger books, which means I will probably getting reviews out a little bit slower, but fingers crossed that I can catch up. If you're an indie author and you would like a review, you can send a request. I will have that information down in the description below. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.